Good evening and welcome to the Milford School Committee meeting of February 2nd, 2017. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast by Milford TV. There are members of the media present. If anybody would like a copy of tonight's meeting, ask any committee member at the end. Thank you. Welcome. First agenda item is approval of minutes. Have all members had an opportunity to review the minutes? Is there any discussion? Do we have a motion? Motion from Joe, second from Jim. All in favor? Next agenda item is announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Any member? Jim?
So Melissa asked me to remind everyone until this date that kindergarten 2017 parent information night and pre-registration will be on Wednesday, March 8th, 2017 at Milford High School. Any potential snow day, it will be Thursday, March 9th, 2017. This is from 6 to 6:30. Parent information presentation is in Milford Auditorium. From 6:30 to 7:30, kindergarten pre-registration and packet pickup will be in the Milford High School cafeteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member?
I just have one, Mike.
Yes.
The Milford Public Schools Special Education Department will be holding an open house for parents on Monday, February 6th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. right here in the Teachers Resource Center at Milford High School. I want to invite all of our parents to come to the event. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next agenda item, invitation to speak. Is anybody here for invitation to speak? Ari?
A few updates about what's going on at the high school. Milford High School participated in the National Letter of Intent Day on February 1st, 2017 for student athletes who will be playing Division I or II athletics in college. To date, 9 senior student athletes have signed off with 9 different colleges and universities to play football, soccer, softball, and golf. The hospitality and tourism management students have hosted the 2nd annual prom fair on the early release day in December. Juniors and seniors visited with over 20 local vendors who provide prom services. The 2018 academic and elective scope and sequence parent presentation was on January 12th. Parents were invited to attend this presentation to learn more about the 2018 course offerings, and the presentation was videotaped and is posted at the high school website. A parent coffee will be held on February 16th at 7:15 a.m. in the teacher's lunchroom to answer questions parents may have about 2018 scheduling. The guidance department is hosting junior college planning night on February 15th at 6:30 p.m. in the library. Next, over 100 students attended a field trip to the Museum of Science on January 30th to see the exhibit Da Vinci. This trip was arranged for all students in the Italian World Language program. Students studied the life of Leonardo da Vinci as an inventor, artist, and scientist. Students interested in the new banking and business management program filled out an application and will be interviewed shortly. 24 juniors will be selected to participate in this new 2-year program. This new program is in partnership with Milford Federal Bank. And finally, the seniors have submitted over 1,200 college applications. Some students who applied early decision or early action have made their final decision as to where they will attend college, but many will make their final commitment by May 1st, which is the national deadline to submit a deposit.
Have any questions? I have one question. When Dr. Tremblay was here, the bank, we were going to build a branch of the bank up in one of the corridors. Is that the plan still?
It is the plan, yes. This summer, we're going to start that process.
Okay.
It'll be part of that program.
Okay. So they are going to have a branch to actually work out of.
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Great. Yes.
Thank you, Art, for the update. You're making this a regular visit for us.
Yeah.
This is 2 meetings in a row, so it's great to see
Yeah.
you again. Thank you for coming in and continuing to keep us updated as you and your fellow classmates. And,
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good luck to you in your college decision making.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank
Any
you.
updates for us?
No.
Okay.
March is going to be next.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Next agenda item is presentation of donations to Special Olympics and Best Buddies.
Just to make it a little more
Sure.
homey. Erica, you sit here.
This is great. Do you want to introduce everybody once you get settled? Or?
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Sandy Gray. Oh, I wanted you guys to come up too. we need to have everybody in here. Huh? Are you sure? Yep. All right. So my name's Sandy Gray. I know most of the Milford community understands our circumstances with our daughter Jackie. And so I, in the early part of the fall, in September, well actually it was during the summer that these lovely people here approached our family and asked us if they could kind of help contribute something in Jackie's honor to a charity of her choosing. They're from the Mickey Ward Charity Association, which is run out of Lowell, Mass. But Mickey Ward, that charity does golf tournaments and has motorcycle runs for the last 8 or 9 years with each of those events, where they try to give to needy families or donate to causes. So because of the circumstance here in the Milford community with our girl, they reached out to us and wanted to do it in Jackie's honor. So we gave it a little consideration, and we, as a family, we thought what better way to honor her than to contribute back to the couple of the programs that she participated in here at the high school and that were really near and dear to her, and she even continued with relationships when she went into college. She continued with a couple of the young men, even this past summer. Before the accident, she brought them out for ice cream and things like that. So she had really enjoyed her relationship with them, and we'd consider them lifelong friends. So we decided on the Special Olympics and Best Buddies. So I know I'm kind of rambling here, I apologize. So this is from Mickey Ward, this is Erica, Kim, and Eric, right? And Eric. And then, of course, we have Jen Walsh from Special Olympics and Nate Goucher from the Best Buddies program. And I just wanted to sort of make it a little more ceremonial and make a presentation to all of you and then the community who's watching, so that you can understand better the connection with these organizations that are out there wanting to obviously do good deeds and raise money for things, and then kind of through Jackie have the benefit, for a couple of the programs here at school. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that for the school. So
Great.
Thank you. I don't know, I'm sorry, I think I've
That's okay. No, you summed it
chatted
up
on and
well.
on.
Well, that's fine.
So why don't
Let's
you
present the
say what we
checks.
have here?
For Jen, Special Olympics, here you go. Thank you very much. You're welcome, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And Nate for Best Buddies.
So each of the
Jackie's
organizations
honor.
is getting $2,000.
You're welcome.
That's very nice.
Yeah, there's $2,000
That's
to
awesome.
both Special Olympics and Best Buddies. So we appreciate it, and then in the future, Mickey Ward, we hope will continue to do, have these benefits and
Yes,
bike
oh, yeah.
runs, and look forward to them in September, and if anyone, rides a motorcycle, jump on it and go riding and help another good cause.
Yeah, it's a good time, it's fun.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any member?
Oh, does anybody, yeah.
I may just, so first off, thank you for coming in and presenting and certainly keeping us in the know and everything that's been going on. And thank you to you guys for, you guys do an unbelievable job, Eric, and the rest of you with the Mickey Ward Run every year. It's been an annual event for, how many years has it been going on now?
This is the 8th.
Here, 8th year here in Milford. So it's long, pretty long-standing tradition here. And certainly an event that I know a lot of people in Milford look forward to and surrounding areas. So I was very pleased when I heard that they were going to be doing something for Jackie through Best Buddies and through Special Olympics. So thank you guys for everything, and thank you, Sandy, as well,
Sure.
for coming in. And of course, to the two folks in the back, thank you for your continuous and tireless efforts for both Best Buddies and certainly for Special Olympics. So we're very fortunate to have all of you here as active members of the community in Milford. So
Yeah,
thank
well,
you.
we all want to support each other, right?
Mhm.
So-
Well, I know Nate and I feel very fortunate to have Jackie in our programs, and she's still making a difference now, so
Yep,
thank you.
that's the goal. Yes, you're welcome. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for thinking of them.
You can keep going. You can keep going, Mike. You can keep going.
Yeah. Okay, next agenda item is middle school east reuse. Any member?
Well, I'll say something.
Yes.
So I know that over the course of the past year, or 2 years, or however many years we've been talking about Middle School East in conjunction with Woodland, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of work, a lot of research that's gone in on the part of this committee, on the part of the Middle School Reuse Committee, on the part of the Cecil Group, and there's been a lot of discussion amongst community members in terms of what we should be doing with the school. And there's been a lot of reflection on the part of the school department and the school committee in terms of what the potential uses are for the district for Middle School East. And I know through the conversations that we've had of late, we certainly asked for more time as a school committee to think about this and to make the best decision for the district. And doing that over the past, better part of a year, I think that at this point, we've talked about it a lot and we've kind of exhausted every possible use for Middle School East, and really coming up with none for many, many valid and rational factors. I, for one, would like to make a motion that we, deem that Middle School East is no longer necessary for the school department as of June 30th, 2017.
There's a motion, any discussion?
If I may, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. So, Jen, I certainly, having spent the better part of the last 2 to 3 years as well, certainly working with Middle School East, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Middle School East is, it's been a great building, served its purpose, beyond its functional, useful years. And certainly was a great home to educate many children in the student and people in the town of Milford. I do believe that we've now moved into a point that it is time to declare it surplus, and really fulfill our obligation as a school committee and really closing the door and turning the page on the long-term education plan. The second to last step was really the construction of Woodland, the new Woodland Elementary, which is a beautiful and fantastic facility. And now this last piece is really doing exactly what we committed to taxpayers when we first went to the taxpayers and to the people of Milford and asked for their commitment and asked for their support in building the new Woodland School. And just short of $61 million price tag that was associated with that. Part of our commitment as a school committee, and I know many of the members have changed since that, but Mike was here with me. I was here as well. I believe, Joe, you had just gotten on at the time when we went to town meeting and said, we asked for the $1 million $1 million awarded for the feasibility study. Part of our commitment was that Middle School East would be declared surplus. So I'm very pleased, and I couldn't agree with you more. So I would like to second the motion to turn Middle School East and declare it to be a surplus building.
Let's just hold tight, see if we have any more discussion, then I'll.
That's fine.
Okay. John?
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to, I guess, a little statement or discuss it a little bit further. I was a proponent for holding off on declaring it surplus until we looked further into our long-range planning needs, which, that process has begun. Some of the things we've looked at along the way in the past year or so that I've been a part of is, expanding the high school programming, and that's an ongoing discussion. And there was some conversation as to, does Middle School East fit into that type of plan to add classes and space? And after having discussions with Carrie and the administration, it's far from ideal to have high school classes off campus, if at all possible. We looked at the possibility of an in-district alternate high school, which for similar reasons just didn't seem like a viable option. We looked at leasing space, presumably, at least in my mind, short-term, 2, 3 to 5 years, in case Middle School East fit into our plans in the future. And while there is some interest, without having any future need apparent to us, it certainly doesn't make sense for us to operate as landlords. And then we talk about the last piece of, the long-range educational plan, which is early childhood. In that plan, we've discussed it many times, either early childhood here was supposed to be renovated, or if Woodland was built elsewhere, it would
Old Woodland would become early childhood. I think we have some issues to address with early childhood that'll, again, be part of the long-range plan. So we look at Middle School East and we say, does early childhood fit there? Certainly not in its current condition or configuration. Parking, playground, possible hazardous materials that are in place there now. So as is, it doesn't seem to fit for an early childhood center. And we had a brief discussion, if we're gonna build a new early childhood center, and that's a big if, but if we were to, would that site be a feasible site? If the finances worked out that we could knock it down and build a standalone early childhood there, and the consensus of this committee a few weeks ago was that it's not an ideal site. We looked at, there was some brief discussion on a combination of administrative use from all the departments, a central office and community use and some other departments, possibly in combination with some town hall use, because town hall's at a space, space at the town hall is at a premium, and there was really no interest from the town side to collaborate with this board to pursue that any further. And then we look at the value of the gym, and clearly the community wants the gym space. It's helping our athletic programs here. Community use could and is making valuable use of that space now, but maintaining and operating a building for a gymnasium, again, doesn't make sense. So I'm inclined to agree with you that, we would declare it surplus, but we'll, I guess, continue the discussion if necessary.
Joe?
Yeah, I think you just did a great job summarizing all the discussions that we've had about that building, and I'm very glad that the motion was to declare it surplus at the end of June, because obviously as a committee we've already committed to covering the expense associated with that building, and as you all know, that building is being used heavily right now by a number of different youth groups. So I certainly wouldn't want to declare it surplus today and have to kick those groups out. So if those groups can continue to leverage the building, continue to take advantage of it while it's there, then I think everybody benefits from it.
I echo everyone else says. I mean, we've done everything humanly possible to figure out what we can possibly do with that building, and John just rifled off all of them. So I'm in agree with everyone as well. That surplus.
Okay, so Jen's motion is that Middle School East will become surplus from the school department June 30th, 2017. To Joe's point, therefore, we'll have kept it for a year, which we agreed we were going to do at the beginning of this year, and also allow the groups that are in there now to finish using it till the end of the year. May I have a second? Second from Scott, all in favor? So the Milford School Committee has voted tonight that Middle School East will be surplus June 30th, 2017. Thank you. Next agenda item, report of the superintendent of schools long-range educational plan.
Great.
Dr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Long Range Education Planning Committee broke into two subcommittees, and we met as subcommittees at the last meeting, basically to discuss kind of two big-ticket items connected to the long-range plan. One being facilities, the second one being program. And I'm going to have Craig Consigli share the program piece, and then I'll share the facilities piece, if that makes sense. Craig, if you don't mind.
I'm going to probably reiterate a lot of what John just said, but we came up with a list of essential questions for the development of the long-range ed plan. I'd just like to go through those real quick, but one being, are we preparing students for their future or our past? In considering that with what we have in place currently. What skills do we need to teach every day to prepare students for college and career readiness? How do we measure success for all students? What are we looking at for instructional practices? How do we get all of our teachers to be like our best teachers? How does increased access to technology affect standardized test scores? Which again, we don't have that information right now. You know that we're just right now at the bottom floor in our technology integration, but over the course of this 10-year plan, how does that fit in? How does that increased technology affect collaborative opportunities? How does it affect learning? What are we doing to ensure all students are safe and secure? Are our buildings safe and secure by today's standards? Does the current grade configuration best suit the needs of the students in our district? Should Shining Star be relocated? Should the 8th grade be part of Milford High School? Could we create an 8-9 academy within Milford High School somehow? Does central office, the special ed office, Shining Star Community Use, Family Resource Center, facilities offices all belong at the Milford High School complex, or is there another building in the district where that could be housed? How do we integrate social emotional learning and technology into what we're doing every day? And then, you know, finally, do the Milford Public School buildings support college and career readiness in the 21st century? Do they support inclusive practices? Again, safety and security demands, technological advances. Do they provide collaborative opportunities and areas to build different things like maker spaces? So those are all questions that we posed at our last meeting. We focused on 6 different areas, and I'll just go over the main areas with everyone. Over the next 10 years, we are talking about social emotional learning, integrated technology instruction, continuous learning opportunities for students and staff, growth-focused instruction with learning and assessment, particularly thinking about student-focused learning and what good teaching looks like and focus on learning. Equity and access for all, making sure that students have access to all the programming and all the right programming for them. And then finally, family and community partnerships. So those are the questions that we talked about in the areas we focused on.
Great. Do you want to open it up for discussion on shift of facilities, or do you want to just do it as one shot? Okay, perfect. There's 3 handouts that we shared with the Long Range Planning Committee that I wanted to share with the school committee as well. The first one I want to direct your attention to is the one that says age, last renovation, and square footage of each building. And this really gives you a sense of kind of where we're at historically in terms of renovation at each of our buildings, the size of each of our buildings, and the current enrollment. I think the enrollment is a year old, but it's roughly the same year over year. And obviously, the Woodland Elementary School statistics are based on the old Woodland, not the new Woodland, because it came from the 2016 data from the MSBA. And we're using this document along with information. Rob Quinn, our facilities director, provided kind of an infrastructure overview for each building as well, which I'm not going to spend time sharing with the committee tonight, but I think this piece of data is kind of an interesting piece of data. The second piece of data I want to direct your attention to is we work with NESDEC, and they provide enrollment projections for us. And they look at enrollment projections a few different ways in this packet. And again, it's just interesting information. We tend to add about a student a year. For the last, I think, 6 or 7 years, it's about 0.7 of a student. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what's happened. But it gives you a sense. And I think we're going to actually, according to these projections, we may dip a little bit, which is not, it's pretty common with the trend across the state, too. A lot of school districts are already seeing a little bit of a decline in enrollment. But again, it's not significant. It's a little bit of a dip. And the last piece of data I want to share with you is just the MSBA process. And I know some of the school committee members were involved in the Woodland project, and it served on the Woodland School Committee, or Woodland Building Committee, and were able to kind of see the process firsthand. But I just want to give the committee this kind of, and this is like a high-level overview of the process, which can be quite lengthy. And again, I think it's just good information to have as we start thinking about, facilities in the future. Okay?
I think what's interesting is, you look at Memorial, it was opened in 1959 and was renovated in 2006.
Yep.
Then you look at Woodland and Brookside. You got Brookside that was opened in 1979 and was renovated in 2007. And then you got Woodland that was opened, the old Woodland, I should say, was opened in 1977 and only made it to 1985.
Right.
What a difference.
Yeah.
And difference in construction, I guess, John.
Oh, absolutely.
Can I just point out what I found to be a fascinating piece of data? If you turn to the high school Stacy sheet, And I found this to be fascinating, that we're sitting in the high school and all we talk about is looking for space. All our programs are mapped out. We have no area, nowhere to grow. And if you look at the Stacy Middle School, you're talking 142,000 square feet with 950 kids. Then you look at the high school. That 342,000 square feet does not include the preschool. And there's only, 200 or so more kids. And you can see the inefficiency in this structure. I mean, we have double the square footage available to us, but we're maxed out in space.
A valid point.
I mean, that's just fascinating.
Didn't we go back to the fact that a lot of that accumulated from the pool?
Well, there is a lot of square footage there, there's no argument, but overall, it's just inefficient in the way that it was designed.
Yeah, Scott?
I think you bring up a good point. I mean, it's 200,000 square feet larger. I mean, it's actually well more than double, for approximately 180 kids more. 180 additional students. So I do think there's certainly an opportunity to make sure that we're really maximizing the space that's available. I do find the other interesting pieces. I still love the fact that they call Brookside a renovation. I think, what did we leave, one wall standing for that renovation? It was considered a renovation in 2007. For those that may not have been on the committee or had students that were in the school, when we went through that Brookside school, if you've not had an opportunity to go through that building, it's a brand new building. I mean, that really was a new construction. The fact that at that point the MSBA would allow it to still be considered a renovation, we left, for all intents and purposes, one wall standing. Everything else in that building, from the wires on up, is brand new. So it is truly, so that's really a 10-year-old school. When I kind of look at the Milford schools, and when people ask me about the school system in the town of Milford, I actually talk about the fact that we really have two brand new elementary schools, and one that was recently renovated. So our elementary schools really are still very much in their brand new one. Obviously, the new one still has that new car smell. So it's great to see, all this information coming back. Certainly the impact on the new Woodland School, I'll be interested to see once this does get updated here, and how our population and what the story this really starts to tell from a space and needs perspective. Knowing that our student population really isn't growing that much and our space has actually increased dramatically, as far as, it'd be interesting to see that. How we're using that space is gonna be sort of critical on that, knowing that our population really isn't changing. And I know that the data only goes back the last, probably 10 to 12 years here. We went back with the Woodland School program. They went back 10 years when we first started it, which was almost 10 years ago. And it was still the same trend. It's about one student a year. That's about what we add on average, year over year, going back we'll call it conservatively, the last 20 years. So it's not a massive increase, so.
Joe?
So, a couple things, Kevin, I'd like to see if it's possible. A document reflecting each of the buildings, could we add, based on today's standards, how many students each building could support?
So what's the max capacity?
Yeah,
Okay.
based on today's standards.
Okay.
I'd just like to see where we stand compared to what it would look like if these were all new schools meeting today's standards. And then on the projections, obviously we have some pretty large housing developments potentially coming up. Did you take that into consideration with the future projections?
They do look at, and I forget their exact methodology, but they do look at housing stock when they make the decisions. I don't know if they're necessarily digging into particular proposals or not, but I can look into that to see if they took a couple of the proposals that are on the table in town into consideration.
Okay.
Any other member? The question I would have, Kevin, only because you and I were just with Carrie, is to Kathy's point, how many other programs are being offered in this building that are using educational space? So she mentioned central office.
Yep.
Community use.
Special education.
Special education. Not that we're gonna do anything, but how much, to Kathy's point, how much of that space is being taken up by
When we have those numbers, I just don't have them at
programs
my
that
fingertips.
aren't, I won't say educational, but, you know,
You can look at Shining Star as 33,000 square
Yeah.
feet. That's part of the high school.
yeah. Yes, John?
I was gonna say, I think that, I should, I was gonna throw out what I thought that number to be from memory, but I don't even wanna say it now on second thought. I may not be right. We'll let Kevin dig it out, but I
Yeah.
do remember seeing that
And I
number.
have it, just not a.
And I think, to Craig's point just now, that 342,000 square feet of Milford High School does not include the 33,000 of Shining Star. But back to the space comparison between Stacy and the high school, when you take, and I'd like, we could probably come up with this pretty quick, but between the auditorium, the gymnasium, the pool, and the
Media.
cafeteria, the media center, those are some large square foot numbers.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective for a future meeting.
And to your point, the new Woodland's 132,000 square feet. So you compare 142,000 square feet at Stacy, we know how jammed that can be, to 132,000 square feet at Woodland, and it seems
Feels
so
very- it's
wide
very
open.
comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's the same amount of kids. Actually, there's more kids in Woodland than there are at Stacy.
But that would give your standard square footage, because that was approved at 985 students. So
Yeah.
if you take that and divide it, that would give you a per
Yeah,
square
roughly.
foot, right,
Yeah.
that they're approving at today's standards.
Any other member? Just want to ask of maybe the marketing committee and administration, only because I don't know if any other member has yet, but I've been getting questioned by the general public, oh, you're building a new high school now. Oh, you just finished the Woodland, now you're building a new high. So it's conversation that, so if we can somehow get the message out that this is where we are, we're working here, and we'll keep them, in the loop as we go through, but there's not a
Absolutely.
new high school coming tomorrow.
Correct.
I guess is the point.
Correct. I think it's important for folks to note that when the original long-range plan was put in place, how many years until the Woodland project was completed?
The original.
No, well, the one we're just wrapping up.
Right, that one, the original version of it, which did include parts of Woodland, was from 1995, and we opened Woodland in 2017. That was the original construction.
It was revised along.
Yeah, there were a couple of
Correct.
revisions
Okay.
that went along with it, but that was 1995 when it was initially constructed.
Yeah, and it called for, the new
Yeah,
Woodland
there were
to
lots of
be,
adjustments.
to roll out around 2007, 2008. So
Right.
we're far behind in that, but at least it's accomplished.
But that was even, right, and even at that point, John, to your point, the estimation at that point was that it was a 12-year wait from that point.
So my point is, it's a little bit of a process, even if, regardless of what the long-range planning committee comes to its ultimate conclusion in terms of a plan,
Right.
there's gonna be a process in place to kind of move whatever the plan is into fruition.
Jay?
Yeah, I actually had a question along those lines. So in terms of starting to engage with MSBA, is your thought that we get further into the long-range planning process, or is that something that you want to kind of get moving on?
I think we'd have to have
from your
I think we'd have
office?
to have a solid plan before we could actually even proceed with a statement of interest.
Mhm.
I think to have that statement of interest in place, we'd have to have kind of our solid plan, whether it was, for one building or a series of buildings. I think we'd have to have a pretty solid kind of vision for what we're going to do, and I think we're getting there.
Mhm.
We're just not quite there yet.
Okay.
Can we get an update on where we are with this piece? Because I for one am somebody, because I have heard the same thing from folks in the community, and I want to make sure, because I'm not, I think, Mike, you started down this road to be very, very clear. There has not been any discussion with this body as a large group of building any new building, or even engaging or beginning down the process of going through the MSBA. So if we can get an update, if that's what the inclination is, starting to go down that road, the faster we can get in front of this body and start to have that conversation, because I do believe that we owe that, if we're gonna start to go down that road, and clearly the narrative is out there, we need to make sure that that the full body is at least aware of that process, if that's something that we're starting to thought process is starting to be formed to the point where it's starting to become a narrative that's out in the public.
You're saying get in front of the story, not behind
You
the
bet
story.
it. You betcha.
John?
Yeah, to that point, I don't think that the conversation's going in that direction. It's something that did come up as a brief and very brief conversation in our previous, or our most recent long-range planning meeting. But I don't think, it certainly was discussed as a topic, but not in any detail, and I don't see it going that direction.
Okay.
But it's too early to say. What we do need to do is clearly identify, again, our space needs, and, is there ever the possibility of the 8th and 9th academy that Craig just mentioned? And we really need to define the space needs before we even at that point, we can consider what we need for a facility, whether it's clearly one of two things. It's either a renovation/addition to this building, or that alternative, which I don't see that being the alternative, but it's premature for me to say that.
And it is no secret that if you look at the date when the building opened is 1973 and compare it to the renovation dates of the other buildings in the district, clearly the high school, we're going to have to do something with the high school. The question is, what's that going to be and how's that going to look?
And Scott, I'm glad you brought this up because, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay.
I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's important that, not just this committee, but the public know.
That we're not engaging with the MSBA at this point, right? Like, we're not writing those letters of intent. We're a long way from even engaging.
I think in terms of a timeline, just to clarify, and I think this will answer Jen's question as well, is that I think the long-range planning committee will hopefully have some kind of proposal or presentation at the end of this school year to present to the school committee. And based on that, I think we create a timeline for a statement of interest to the MSBA. And part of any building project, whether it's new construction or renovation, will require a feasibility study. And through that feasibility study process, I think it's going to be clear whether, like, let's say the high school is the project, whether it's a renovation, whether it's a recommended new building. And it's going to play into some of the things that Craig talked about too, is, how are we looking in terms of, grade configuration for the future? What are we looking in terms of the complex? Because this really isn't just a high school. It's a high school complex because there's a preschool here, there's a number of offices here, and how is that going to look in the future? And I think we're looking at all of those things.
So, just for clarity's sake, because what we just talked about in your narrative, Kevin, are not in alignment. And I want to be very clear. If I'm listening from home right now, I heard 3 school committee members just say, we are not engaging with the MSBA, we're not at that point, we're not even close to that point. And then I just heard the superintendent say, well, if we start to go down, let's talk and start talking about statement of
What I'm
interest.
talking about is the process. So what the process would be.
I got that.
Yeah,
so I want to be very clear, Kevin.
Yeah.
We have not begun to engage with the MSBA with statements of interest, nor are we at a point where we are making a decision on that as we sit here today.
No.
At some point, that may be a difference, and that may be a change as a result of the long-range plan. But we are not engaging with the MSBA at this point of statement of interest. I got it. I just want to make sure that we're all 100%
Yeah, and I can
20/20 on
re-clarify that. So basically,
Okay.
the timeline is going to be, the long-range planning committee will continue to meet through the spring. At the end of the school year, I'm anticipating the first or second meeting in June. The long-range planning committee will make a presentation to the school committee. The school committee will give feedback, I'm sure, and we'll ask for community input along the way too, I think at 1 or 2 points. Based on the long-range planning committee, the next phase of that process would be, whatever that recommendation would be, then we'd start talking, is it a statement of interest? And if it were a statement of interest, you still have to do a feasibility study to determine whether it's new construction, it's a renovation, regardless of what the plan is. And that's true of any building project.
Okay. All right, next agenda item is the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction Assessment, Mr. Consigli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Curriculum mapping first. Curriculum mapping. With curriculum mapping, we're setting out on a mission to ensure that students have similar experiences from one classroom to the next. We want to make sure that learning expectations are high. We want to make sure that students are engaged every day in every class. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that all students have the fundamental skills that will lead them to college and career readiness, be productive citizens. We've begun to map out what it looks like for a student in any and all grades, pre-K to 12. Our hope, and we presented this to the curriculum team leaders and the building leadership just this past couple weeks, and out to all the faculty very shortly, is that to have completed maps by next January 2018. And when I say completed, it's kind of misleading because curriculum mapping is never going to be over. It's an ongoing process of revision, looking at what we're doing, talking about it between teachers, and making sure that what we're asking and what we're intending for outcomes are actually happening. When it's completed, what it's going to look like basically is a document that the public can look at, that teachers can use, that everybody can reference and know what's going on in every single classroom. The design came, and there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of programs that cost a lot of money, and we're trying to save a substantial amount of money by doing it in-house. And Sarah Boyle ended up creating, through the work of Google, with docs and sheets, I think a product that we're all kind of happy with right now. We don't really know the limitations of it right now because we're just getting into it. I think I'm hoping that there aren't really any limitations, but it seems to be user friendly, and it seems like parents and everybody's going to be able to navigate it. So what does it look like? What's going to happen is you'll have a curriculum map. On the map, we'll have the months across the top. It'll have every week laid out. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. You'll have units on the side. It'll say whatever the unit is. So if we're talking science, say weather is unit 1. It'll say weather, and then it'll say it takes 3 weeks, and it'll map out which 3 weeks in the year it could potentially happen. Then people are going to be able to click on the weather, or whatever the unit is, and a unit map will come up. And as part of that unit map, you're going to know the desired results, what the assessment evidence is, and to the extent we can, a learning plan. We're trying to make it so that there is some teacher autonomy. We don't want to drill down all the way to specific lesson plans so that all the teachers are teaching the same exact thing. We don't really want to do that. We still want to allow teachers some flexibility. But what we do want is all the same learning targets to be taught. And I think going through this exercise, we've done it, but the product that we've come out with is not user-friendly at all. And unfortunately, a lot of it, it's just not easily accessible for anybody. So we're hoping that to get this thing rolled out and going, we know it's going to take a lot of time. And we know it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of collaboration between staff, but I think the return on it is going to be tremendous for our kids. And I think that we'll end up in a place where all kids are having similar experiences, and parents will feel comfortable that whatever teacher they draw is the best teacher for the kid, because guess what? Whatever they're doing is the same thing that's happening in the other class. Does anybody have any questions about curriculum mapping?
No, I don't have a question, but I have a comment, I guess. So first of all, I think that it's great what you're doing, and I think I'm working at a place where we do have one of the more costly curriculum mapping programs out there. I don't know that you get any more bang for your buck by paying a lot of money for something for this, where the end result is the same. The end result is documenting what we want people to be teaching in the classrooms and how we want to be assessing students. I think the one thing that I would love to see embedded somewhere in these maps is the idea of what are we asking students to do, and how are we asking students to get to the learning objectives. One of the trainings that I just recently went to, they had this phrase called task predicts performance. And when I think about the tasks that our students are asked to be doing, I really want to see an emphasis on engaging all of our teachers in really carefully thinking about the tasks, because appreciating the fact that teachers should have autonomy, and you don't want clones in every single classroom, you want best practices in every classroom, but I really would like to see professional development and more consistency in terms of what are the tasks that each of these big objectives, how are we getting kids to learn the important big ideas. I don't know if you can put that phrase on the maps or just keep reiterating it.
So I have a paper copy of what it looks like, and it does have some of the things you're talking about. Established goals is at the top. and then the actual content standards, but addition to that, we're trying to embed literacy standards into all of them. We're also trying to embed technology standards. We're also trying to embed social emotional learning into all of these unit maps so that those things that are new initiatives and teachers feel like they're being dumped on their plate become embedded within all of the things that they're already doing. That's what we're trying to do, and it doesn't feel like a new initiative. It just feels like it's something that we do every day anyways. But also, I guess it's the same thing. There are understandings on there. So what are kids understanding? What are the tasks? But then essential questions. And these, when you drill it down and you see it, I guess, parents are going to be able to know that these are the essential questions, and your student, your child should be able to answer these questions when this unit's all said and done. But other things on here are vocabulary words that they need to know. So I think if parents are really invested, they could go on here and look at it and really follow along with kids as they go through their year. The other thing we were going to do, I forgot to mention this, but not only were we going to go subject matter, so you could look at math and see what happens in first grade, second grade, third grade, you could go that way. But you could also go just click on fourth grade, and then all the tabs would be underneath, so you could click on math, science, social studies, all the way across, and be able to see that way. So we're trying. We'll see how it turns out. But as part of the assessment, the performance tests are on there and other evidence.
That's great.
Any other member? Joe?
Craig, how would parents, how would families access the information? Would it be through the family portal that they're using today, or?
No, I would envision it as part of just the website, not the family portal. I think it would just be on the website and anybody could get to it that way. But keep in mind, we're all, as a district, learning Google still. So I think there's going to be some hiccups with, which I'm probably the worst offender in the district of, is when people share things with me, I make changes and then they're like, oh, accidentally make changes.
Yeah.
But I could see some of that happening from teacher to teacher. So there might be a little hiccup along the way.
And how involved was the staff in this? Like, did they give input? Are they buying in?
So right now we're at the leadership level. Staff, as far as the way I'm approaching it, and actually I'm going in front of Memorial in Brookside with this next week, but it's most important that they're part of this, because the last thing that staff wants is for someone like me to come along and tell them exactly what they're doing. They're the ones that need to be building these things, because it's happening right in the front lines, happening in their classrooms every day, and they don't want somebody telling them exactly what they're doing. And the whole point of it is, if you do any research and you look at John Hattie's work, the biggest factor in figuring out student achievement is the collaboration that teachers have. That's the number one factor. If teachers are working together and we're all pointed in the same direction, then we're going to have the biggest impact on student achievement and student growth. So that's the point we want to drive home to teachers, is you got to be in a room, you got to be talking together, and we all got to be asking the same thing from kids. So it is very important.
Any other member?
All right, well, my second part is my MCAS update. Very important. I think, I definitely have mixed feelings about MCAS, and as a principal especially, I really tried to recognize the unintended messages you send when you try to give as much information as you can about MCAS, but you really don't want to stress MCAS, so there's really a fine line between how much information you give without making people feel nervous. And I think that we're doing a good job at it, but I don't want people to be nervous about it. And I think kids are prepared for it, and I think the best way to prepare for it is just to work hard every day. I think as long as we're following the standards, we're working hard every day. I think that's the best way. Now that said, it would also be foolish of us not to to let students see, for example, practice tests, which for the computer-based learning, for the computer-based test, which we're doing in grades 3, 4, 5, and grade 8 this year. Those just came out yesterday and some today, so we'll be doing those at Woodland and a little bit at Stacy over the next couple months to prepare for that. And then by next year, every student 3 to 8 is going to be taking it on the computer. This year there's some differences in the MCAS. There's one extended window for grades 3 to 8 instead of 2 separate windows. So the benefit of that is it really disrupts school for one set amount of time instead of 2 separate amounts of time. The benefit of the new Woodland building, and I think it's going to be great for kids, is we can kind of spread out testing a little bit so that they can start the testing in April. For example, in grade 3, they're having their April 6th test as their first language arts test, but then they go to the 4th grade to the 5th grade, and then they don't actually take another test for a week later. So we kind of get away from that assessment fatigue that kids have been used to. The other thing with Woodland is you're able to give, you don't have to give it whole school because you're able to section off the building. And you're able to just say, okay, everyone in the 3rd grade is taking it, then you move to the next floor, and it's not the whole building being shut down. So we look forward to those. As far as the high school goes, the 10th grade will be taking it on set days. That starts in March too. We've also started to, Eamon Cunningham has worked with a consultant for the language arts. And it was pretty interesting. Dr. McIntyre were actually...
I was blown away.
We were in class with what this guy was doing, and he came up with I don't know how to say it. It's like a pattern, a colored pattern.
It's almost like coding like you do in a doctoral dissertation, but it breaks it down to the writing process, and it's so visual for students that it's brilliant. It's like so simple, but it's brilliant.
Right. And it was just so powerful to see the kids understanding. Oh man, now I see. I need more evidence. I don't know. It was great. So we're actually doing that now in our 10th grade classes, and hopefully it helps them. And we're going to then push it down for the next year and in the year after. But the math department also has brought in some consultants to help with remediation. So we're working hard, and hopefully this year we're going to see better results.
Thank you. Any other member?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No? Thank you, Mr. Consigli.
You're welcome.
Next agenda item is a report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources. Mrs. Perry?
Yes, I have for the committee this evening 8 warrants for approval. The first warrant is in the amount of $168,272.51.
Can I have a motion from John, second by Joe? All in favor?
The second warrant is in the amount of $25,052.83.
Motion from Scott, second from Jim. All in favor?
The third warrant is in the amount of $409,193.72.
Motion from Joe Calery, second by Jen. All in favor?
The fourth warrant is in the amount of $1,304.65.
Motion from Joe Marias, second by Jim Legore. All in favor?
The fifth warrant is in the amount of $29,375.88.
Motion by Scott, second by Jen. All in favor?
The sixth warrant is in the amount of $3,471.64.
Motion from Joe Calery, second from Jim. All in favor?
The seventh warrant is in the amount of $304,997.92.
Motion from John Erickson, second by Jim Legore. All in favor?
And the last
Yikes.
warrant is in the amount of $21,803.54.
Motion from Joe Marias, second by John Erickson. All in favor?
The committee does have a request for a out-of-state travel tonight in the for the Brookside School to travel to North Kingston to the Biomes Marine Biology Center. There are 24 adults attending and approximately 80 students, and that does require a vote.
And of course, the important question we ask all the time, the nurse?
The nurse has been identified.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, I have a motion from Joe Calery, second by Jen, all in favor?
The committee also has a list of the latest appointments from our previous meeting. I also do have a course reimbursement request for, or I should say in the amount of $21,658.15 for your approval.
Yes. My question, Kathy, you want me to read these all?
No, we have
I'm
a
sorry.
vote on the table for the course reimbursement in the amount of $21,658.15.
Okay, motion from Scott, second by Jim, all in favor?
And yes, we would need to have them read individually
Read individually with one vote.
with
though.
one vote.
Okay. Bear with me, there's 10 of them. So the first gift is, the donor is Alliance Energy LLC. It's for curriculum development in the amount of $500. The next donor is the DeJondo family. It's for the Family Network gift, $25. The next donor is the Gary family for Family Network gift, $25. The next donor is the McCoy family, again for the Family Network gift of $40. The next gift is Joseph and Renee Calery for the Family Network gift of $50. The next is David and Heidi Gordon, again for the Family Network gift in the amount of $50. You want me to read each one of these letters? However you want. I'll read
No,
them.
you don't need the letters, as long as you've got everybody there identified.
Okay. This is for Milford Family Community Network. I would like to submit 2 enclosed Milford Family Community Network membership drive donation checks for approval and deposit. These checks total in the amount of $50. Again, the Milford Family and Community Network. I would like to submit 1 enclosed Milford Family and Community Network donation check for approval and deposit. This check total is in the amount of $40.
Mr. Chairman, are these for the same thing?
They may be. I think it's just the backup with the checks, Mike.
They're not attached to the,
No, I think we've cut all of the gifts.
well, let me just read the last one, just to
Okay.
be safe, so we're on TV. I would like to submit 2 enclosed Milford Family and Community Network membership drive donation checks for approval and deposit. These checks total in the amount of $100. That way there, we've read them all.
Yep.
And motion from Jim, second from Scott. All in favor? Okay. Subcommittee updates, budget.
So we had our meeting with the FinCom budget, the FinCom Education Subcommittee, where we reviewed the initial budget that we discussed a couple weeks ago. There's clearly a need for some further discussion around the budget. There's a little bit of a disconnect between where we are and where the FinCom Education Subcommittee wants us to be in terms of the net increase. So we'll be having some more conversations about that to see if there's any room, any flexibility with our proposed budget. We also have a meeting coming up with the FinCom Capital Subcommittee on February 8th. It's at 5 o'clock at Town Hall, so if you want to put that on your calendar, it's next Wednesday night.
What time?
5 o'clock.
Town Hall, Joe, you said?
Yeah. Any member, or any questions for Joe?
The only question I would have is I know typically we do a couple as a result of those meetings. We then generally will schedule a follow-up meeting, generally a longer meeting, generally on a Saturday. That's what we've been doing. It's been our history for the last several years. Are we at a point where we're ready to start to schedule that?
We can.
Not that I'm in a rush, just not that I don't
Yeah.
love you all and want to spend Saturdays with you, but.
Fortunately, we've gotten it, we're a little bit in front of it now. We started the conversations early with FinCom. We do have another education subcommittee meeting scheduled for February 13th. It's Monday at believe that's at 6 o'clock.
I think you're right.
I can check.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
To continue the conversation that we had this past week. So I think we'll see how that conversation goes, and then
6
from there,
p.m.
we can schedule 6 p.m. And then from there, we can schedule another school committee meeting to review the budget and make some decisions then.
Yeah, it's just that we absolutely do need to have that meeting after, sometime after that meeting on the 13th.
In addition to, I guess my question would be is between now, between the last meeting that you just had and the next meeting, there's no proposed adjustments that are going into what this committee has submitted, what the full committee has submitted as a result of that Saturday?
There's gonna be there may be some I think that there's gonna be a change to what was proposed, and may be a change for how certain things are funded. Let's put it that way.
Okay, all right, I just, my understanding of the way that we have always done this process, and as one member, if there's going to be a change to what we, as a full committee, are charged with and are submitting for the finance committees for conversation, that it would be a conversation in detail with the full committee, not as part of this, but that's not what is being said, that's why I asked the question.
Well, we're not
Is if
taking
there's a
anything away
change.
from what was proposed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to just make
No,
sure.
we're not
Okay, that's
taking
why I
anything
asked if
away
there was
that's
gonna be a
proposed.
change.
Right.
Got it,
No.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was gonna say, Scott, I agree with you. It wasn't my understanding that we were gonna go forward with any changes without talking,
Yeah,
having a
the full
discussion with the
committee.
full committee.
Full committee, yeah. We always do that.
Yeah, and I think if
That's what I
we're
wanna
at a
make
point
sure.
to do a revised budget proposal, we bring everybody together and have a conversation.
Can I just clarify, so
Yes.
what's the purpose of the meeting on Wednesday, the 8th? Is
That's
it a
capital.
FinCom meeting? It's
Yeah,
capital.
that's
Okay.
capital. So the only thing we have there is the memorial playground
Okay.
project, and then we're gonna have a conversation about the Chromebooks as well, and what's the best approach to handle with those. So,
Right.
as we discussed at the last meeting, we were thinking a capital item made a lot of sense as a
Mhm.
committee, so we wanna have that conversation with them and see what their thoughts are on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other member? Climate, culture, and morale?
Climate, culture, morale, we did have a meeting about 2 weeks ago with them. Obviously, the topics that we typically discuss are either facilities related or student behavior related, discipline related. From a facilities perspective, one of the things that was asked of us was to provide spray bottles in all of the elementary classrooms so that teachers can, or students can wipe down the desks, especially this time of year when there's a lot of illnesses going through the building. So that was provided over the Christmas break.
I think right after the Christmas
Right
break.
after the Christmas break. So that's in place now. A couple of open items from a facilities perspective, I believe that are going to be addressed most likely over February vacation. There's a leaky roof and memorial in one of the classrooms. There's some issues with heating at Stacy, and then there's a kiln at Stacy that needs to be installed as well. So those are all on the radar. And then from a student discipline perspective, we continue to have a lot of conversations about that. Obviously, that's a focus through the SEL grant that we recently received. So we talked a little bit about that. One of the requests that we're hearing a lot from teachers is just increased visibility from the administration, and I know that's something that Craig and Kevin have been talking to principals about a lot as well. So.
Good. Any member have any questions? Next subcommittee is wellness. I was unable to attend. Joe, by chance, were you?
I was unable to attend as well.
Okay.
I have an update.
Can you please?
Yep, absolutely. So there's a number of items. The first is the summer feeding program for 2017, and that program was very successful last summer. We're going to have a closed site again and an open site. Our closed site this summer will be the Woodland Elementary School, where we're moving, I think, the vast majority of our summer programs just because of the climate control there. It's just a more comfortable experience. And we'll continue to have Memorial as our open site, which will be open to the community. And that worked very well, and that's actually very cool because the cafeteria is located in the basement. The wellness nurse coordinator, Lisa White, who's done a lot of great work in the district this year, we're proposing a grant through China for a renewal of a wellness nurse, and that's going to be submitted next week. I'm going to give you an update, I think, later on with Wellness and Healthy Kids Week, because our initial proposal was during the MCAS timeframe, so we're shifting the week. So I'll give you the committee an update a little bit later on. We're also providing physicals for student athletes at no cost to increase access to our high school athletic program. And we're going to be starting that in March for the spring season, and we'll be continuing that next year as a go forward.
Is that in coordination with the, I know Paul and the Board of Health has gone through, has supported us with a lot of those things from a cost perspective. Is that being supported and funded through the
It's
Board of
actually,
Health?
Dr. Perriello will be performing the physicals with some of our nurses in support.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to have,
There's
I think it's
not
going to have
cost.
minimal financial impact. I think there'll be some, there'll be a little cost, but it's going to be minimal.
Jen?
Just a comment on the summer lunch program, which I personally can't call summer feeding program. That I think we talked last year maybe about the idea of renaming it,
We're-
getting it
you know,
more palatable.
I would love to just be able to brand it for Milford, but it's a kind of a broader
Yeah.
program. And
Right.
But maybe the way we talk about it.
Absolutely.
when,
Absolutely. It's a
and
great point.
I can't remember last year, I don't remember if it came up later in the year, and if there was a chance to advertise it a lot during the school year. But I think as much PR as we can get out while the kids are still in school, because I think I remember that some of the participation fell off a little bit after summer school ended. And I know you guys made a great effort with, you showed up there and you really tried to get families there. But I think maybe the more we can do to highlight that around town and even while kids are still in school.
Absolutely. The other piece we're really trying to get is we have great participation Monday through Thursday. Like last year was at Brookside, this year will be at Woodland. We're trying to figure out ways to get that Friday participation.
Right.
We're hoping to get some of the students that participate Monday through Thursday to Memorial on Friday.
Scott?
I think along with that, as well as, again, back to the point with the physicals, I would just ask that the Wellness Committee, and I know they're usually pretty connected with them, but reach out to the Board of Health. So when we've done other forms of testing, any type of inoculations, things of that nature, the Board of Health generally has funding and grants that may be able to, even if it's minimal financial costs, great. Well, if we can offset it or maybe even expand the program, great. Why not work with our fellow board
Absolutely.
there? So I would ask that we do that, as well as they may be able to help us with promoting some of the summer, we call the summer feeding program as we do today, as it is part of overall potential general health.
Mhm.
So they may be another resource for us.
Any other member? Okay. Jen, could you do policy?
Oh, I've got like two more quick things.
Oh, I'm
for this
sorry.
one.
I'm sorry. I thought you said
No,
hold
no.
up. I'm sorry.
No, I've got a whole other page. I'm trying to. Okay, here we go. The other piece is a Build Our Kids for Success program, which is a before-school fitness program being offered to students at Memorial and Brookside. They're working with the PTO and principals, as well as the Woodland before-school program, which continues to be very well attended and offered several sessions sponsored by the Community Use Program and headed by the Woodland PE teachers. It's just another way to get more activity and exercise and physical fitness into the day. And we're seeing a lot of interest, a lot of participation, and that we see the programs expanding in the future. And that's my last piece.
Sure.
Pretty sure.
Jen, policy?
Okay. So the first item that we talked about tonight was technology and responsible use of devices and internet and access and things like that. So we met with Matt Joseph. He'll be coming back to provide us with more information about the way that we want to look at devices, the way we want to look at student behavior while using the devices, and we still need to take a look at what belongs in a policy and what belongs in a handbook and how to maybe marry the two, so we have a comprehensive approach to how students are using technology in the schools. So that will be, we're not ready for any kind of read on that yet. We're still at the creation of a proposal with that. We touched on the turf fields, and there'll be some updated language with the fields. There's a little more research to do in terms of fees for using the fields that Craig's office is going to be looking into, and making sure that we have all the right verbiage in terms of what can and cannot be used on the fields, particularly with Woodland coming online. I think does that pretty much cover what we did with fields? We revisited the religious observance policy, and we talked about what seemed to be a proposal from Kevin at the last the last time we kind of talked about this, which was finding a way to involve some religious observance or making some note that there are religious holidays and there are religious traditions and customs and practices that our families engage in, and maybe finding a spot in each school where we could honor those traditions and religious customs by perhaps putting some displays in some common areas of school with some kind of an explanation as to what is being put there and why. So it can be more of a learning experience for students rather than just plopping down a bunch of menorahs and stockings and candles and et cetera. So there was a proposal to amend the language and to bring it back to this committee for review.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April, we'll be ready to do that. Let me have that discussion as a full committee.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just one quick question on that piece, Jen. So, with regards to the religious observance, so this is with regards to, you know, obviously the biggest component that we've been talking about with this that created a lot of concerns last year was specifically relating to Christmas. And certainly the most recently the sort of Christmas holiday season, right? So Christmas and Hanukkah as well. There are obviously other religious holidays that kind of go along with that.
Right.
You know, I think part of that is, and what I would ask as the subcommittee goes in, and certainly as you guys continue to formulate this and get ready for the March meeting and presenting the full policy, potential adjustments from there, is what latitude and freedom do our teachers have within their classroom for non-secular decorations? And how do we make sure that we're, without having to literally spell out down to the letter of everything, making sure that we're all very comfortable with exactly what that means, and making sure that our teachers and our students alike are feeling very comfortable with understanding exactly what's acceptable, what's not, without getting to the point of ridiculousness on it, and getting to a point where and I think this committee is in agreement with this, but I don't want to speak for everyone. We want to avoid what happened this past year, where we had students that were afraid to say Merry Christmas in our schools, where we had teachers that didn't know whether they could wear an elf sweatshirt, or whether they could put up a Christmas tree, which was actually deemed by the Supreme Court as a non-secular decoration. So I want to make sure as we're getting through this, as you guys are going through this, that those are pieces that are being added in and or adjusted as we get into this conversation further.
Yep.
And I think, to your point, the other piece of this, no matter what goes in a policy and what's on a piece of paper, we talked about this tonight, there's always a hole to be poked or a question to be asked or some layer that requires common sense or conversation. And I think now that there's been this additional time to reflect on the policy and talk about it and make sure that there's very clear communication or clarification if people have questions, I think we'll be in a much better place to do that for next December season than we were this.
A good example of that, Jen, is the sweatshirt, you know,
Right.
with the candy cane on it, or the sweater with the candy cane. There was nothing in there, but it got taken out of context. So
Right.
to Scott's point,
Right.
the second time around, we'll make sure we're good and clear.
So the final thing that we talked about tonight, although it was not on the agenda, just in terms of a future item to put on policy, was which stemmed from a communication from a parent regarding homework and asking us to revisit the homework policy and asking us to, I don't even know if we've ever determined that we actually have a homework policy or we have homework practices, but we've been asked to take a look at what's really the reality in terms of homework, in terms of time that it's taking students, especially on weekends and school vacations, and how can we as a district try to help find that fine balance between what needs to be reinforced at home and what other things that aren't related to school need to be reinforced at home.
And hopefully the whole curriculum mapping discussion
Yes, you mentioned that.
helps
Yes.
with that,
Good.
hopefully.
And I'm glad you brought that. That's something that I actually had on here for future agenda items for policy, was around the homework. I've had several parents, particularly around the middle school, that are talking about the fact that their students are coming home after school and it's taking them from roughly 3:30 in the afternoon, and in some cases it's taking students until 8 or 9 o'clock at night to complete their homework assignments. They're having 2 to 3 major tests per week, in addition to projects in addition to, they're picking out books, which I think is wonderful, and they've got them reading. I had one parent that actually brought to my attention that their student had a test on a Thursday in one subject, a test on a Friday in another subject, and because of the book that was chosen for them to do, they're at a point where they're reading in excess of 30 pages a night, with notes, with reports that are being done on top of it, plus projects, plus their regular daily homework in their other subjects. It was getting to a point where they're almost doing another full school day worth of work.
You don't mind me asking what grade level?
This is middle school, so this is 6th, 7th, and 8th. So this is in the 6th, 7th, and 8th without specifically garnering in on one, but it was in the middle school.
Okay.
So that was the age range of the parents that had reached out to me and some of their concerns around it. So if we can make sure that we're addressing that as we go through that piece.
Okay, any other member? Okay, next agenda item, any future agenda items? We got Scott's first request for the homework. Any other? No?
Just one more,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. We're about halfway through the school year. Is that fair to say? We're coming up on the halfway mark.
We're there.
Right, we're there. I should have asked the teacher. Right.
Yep.
With this being the first year, kind of going through with the Woodland transition and the middle school transition of East, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we get an update and invite the principal of Woodland, perhaps at one meeting, and then at a subsequent meeting, the principal and Nancy coming in from the middle school, just to give us an update on how's the transition gone, what are the things that they're really excited about, what are some of the things, just give us an update of what are they excited about, what are maybe some of the challenges that they're facing, what are changes that they're seeing.
Yep.
I know one of the things that we saw a lot, 8th grade, there were some, when the teachers were moving down to Stacy, there were a lot of traditions, long-standing, multiple generation traditions in the middle that were at East. How are we doing with those? There were some concerns and some questions that were brought up from parents with regards to, are we still going to be doing? Craig, you were the principal there. We don't call it graduation anymore, but 8th grade sort of moving up ceremony. Are we going to be maintaining that? It's been a long-standing tradition. Things of that nature, the DC trip, things, and just kind of getting an update on the transition.
Sure. Okay, any other member? No? Okay, you got all that?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Any old business? No. There is no executive session tonight, so can I have a motion for adjournment? Motion from Scott, second by Jen. All in favor? Good night, everybody, and thank you very much. Have a safe weekend.